Hi everyone, this is Adrian from codingpedia.org. In this short video, I'm going to present you how using bash aliases has significantly improved my developer experience in the bash terminal. So let's begin. Let's say I'm using pretty often the following command, ls-rrt pipe more. That is display the contents of the current directory one screen at a time. Wouldn't it be prettier if instead of typing this command I use something like lm and do the same thing? Yeah, I guess it would be. So we can do this with alias by defining an alias in the following way: alias lm equals, and then the command I just input earlier. ls means rrt pipe more. And once I defined this alias lm, I can execute the command. And you see we have now the same result. Aliases are keyboard shortcuts for longer commands you type in the terminal. So this one, it's pretty easy to remember and not that hard to type in. But let's say I want to forward via SSH tunnel a local port, let's say for my remote MySQL database that's hosting my the Podcastpedia server. So I would basically have to type in the following command: ssh-l, it's the local host port I am forwarding to the remote local host .1, and then I will say the user and the server IP address where the server is hosted. I'm using Digital Wolfram, by the way. I guess this is the IP address 107.43-n. So you see, this is a pretty long command that most likely I would like to have it aliased. I will stop this tunnel. So what I can do again is define an alias for this. I could name this alias tunnel MySQL and just copy it. And now if I use tunnel MySQL, it will have the same effect, but much shorter and even more easier to remember. The bad thing about aliases is that they are short-lived, in that sense that they are valid only the current session. So if I open a new terminal and try typing in tunnel MySQL, you see that the bash does not recognize this, but there's a way around it. We can source our alias if we define them in bash rc or in bash profile. I prefer using a bash alias dedicated file, which I import in the bash profile file. So if we have a look at my bash profile file, you see that I have an if condition that looks for bash aliases, which will get executed if this is present. And of course it's present because I have a pretty long list of aliases, and I'm just going to add the tunnel MySQL alias to this file, and then it will be available in the future logins. So I'm just gonna edit this file. That was bash aliases. Let's put it in the beginning of the file just for showing sake. I will put a comment here, tunnel aliases, and I will just copy paste this alias we defined in the previous terminal. Oh, I didn't copy right. Let's try again. Paste. So I will save this file, and now if I try running it again, you see it still doesn't work because the bash alias files did not get sorted. So in order to do that, I can just source it. I will source my bash aliases file. And now if I try to type again, you see this has now the expected effect. I will just stop this. And now if I open a new window, a new terminal, and type in tunnel, you see I just type tune and then hit the tab button and it does autocomplete, and this is a really nice feature. And voila, the same result as before. I will just stop this again. My alias list has become pretty big in the meantime, and I keep adding aliases to it. So how would I do this more efficiently? Well, I just defined a couple of aliases for that. So the first one is alias bi that will edit this alias file. If I click this, I will go to the previous bash aliases file that I showed you earlier. So let's add another alias here. That one with a list of the directory contents. I will define here alias lm ls minus lrt pipe more. Okay. I will save it. And I also defined an alias to source it. I will just type alias source, and now I should have access to that new alias. So you see it works as expected. Now if I want to see, for example, the content of the aliases shown earlier, how would I do that? Well, of course, I defined an alias for it. So I will just do alias grep, and in the name it should have something to do with alias. So I would say alias minus. And now I get a list of alias that have alias minus in their name. So you see we have the alias pi command, the first one, then the source. It will source the bash profile. Of course, it could have been also bash alias file. And then the alias grep, which does call the alias command and then makes a grep plus the term I want to look for. I forgot to mention in the beginning, if you want to see all the aliases that are valid for the current terminal, you just let me clear. You just type alias and you have then a list of all the alias that are valid for the current session. You see I have lots of commands for alias commands for change directory. For example, if I know I'm going pretty often to the Codepedia project hosted on GitHub directory, so I always do this. And of course, I can alias it with the change directory, Codepedia, and then GitHub IO. Of course, I can execute this like the following. I do a cd and minus, and then I will tab to see what proposals do I have, and there are not that many, so I can choose now Codingpedia and makes an autocomplete, and now I'm in that directory. Or another good example is of a command that I use very often is Maven clean install. So I defined here an alias for that. You see, I've tried to group my aliases based either on a context or application like Tomcat. So I have different alias grouped for Tomcat or Nginx. So they're easy for me to remember and use the autocomplete function that the shell provides. As you can see, the alias possibilities are endless. It really made my life easier since rediscovering aliases, and I even wrote a post about it on Codingpedia. You can find the link below in the description, and of course you can contribute to it. Codingpedia is open source. Just do a pull request, and if you like my approach, just give it a thumbs up. So thanks, and see you soon again.